Okay, hey, are we back? Whoa, can you see me? Okay, I think we're back. All right, cool. Okay, I'm gonna give it. I'm gonna give it some. I'm gonna give it some time for us to watch a nice commercial. Support our gracious Twitch.tv hosts. Yeah, please make a poll for this during the showcase. It'll be very funny. Wow, that's a lot of points. What can you do with points? Can you do anything fun? Wow. Wow, all right. Well, please save it for the showcase, and then you can burn all your points, okay? Nice. Amazing. Amazing. Okay, all right. We're going to get back to it. Okay, so Sudoku, what you're watching right here is an example of how to solve this. This is a basic algorithm, but as it turns out, on really, really hard problems, often basic algorithms are the ones that get used, like on NP hard problems, NP complete in this case. So this is a technique called backtracking. If you'll notice, what happens is the computer tries to guess numbers, and if it guesses a number that works, then it just moves forward. Now, the problem, though, is that as you move deeper and deeper down the Sudoku grid, you find that sometimes you made a selection earlier that invalidates all of your options later. Okay, so we try all the numbers, but eventually we get to a point where there are no numbers that we can actually move forward with. At this point, we need to backtrack, and that's why the algorithm is called backtracking. We backtrack and we choose a different number, and then we move forward again, hoping that this earlier choice will lead us to having more options later on. This is not the most satisfying algorithm in the world intellectually, I think. It is kind of just, if you think about it, it's just kind of a depth-first search. You just kind of fly down your search tree of all possible states of the board, and as soon as you run out of options in one branch, you just go back up until you can find a new branch. And that's it, really. This works fine, actually. On modern computers, it's fast enough to really quickly solve puzzles. However, classical search techniques, as powerful as they are, can be extremely fragile. And here's what I mean, okay? Here's a board. Okay, here's a board. It looks pretty innocent, doesn't it? But solving this board with a kind of classical backtracking approach will take you 2 hours to solve, okay? This other board might take, less than 20 milliseconds for your modern computer to solve, but this one will probably take minutes or hours to solve. It has been kind of pathologically designed to mess with backtracking and make backtracking as painful as possible. And that's the kind of thing that you can do. Okay? All right. Take a shot if he mentions DP. Dragon Punch? Yeah, I'm not sure what DP means. Digital processing? Okay, let's keep going. Okay, so here's an example of classical game AI, Connect 4. Has anyone played it? It was designed by Milton Bradley and Hasbro DP means something that's super obvious, but I'm not. Dynamic programming. I apologize. Okay, so Milton Bradley and Hasbro designed Connect 4 in 1974, okay? Like Sudoku, it's a game that's kind of all about constraints. You need to create a line of 4 in any direction of your color to win. However, your constraint is that you can only choose a column any turn. You can't choose the row, okay? The row that your new token ends up on depends on where the previous tokens were placed. So that adds a pretty intense element of strategy. Let's give it a play. All right. Yeah, DP was a tough subject. I remember it from graduate school. We did a lot with it. Okay, so what we're going to do is we're going to play a game against the AI, okay? We've started a new game. So we can win in 21 turns if we want to. So here's the question. What are we going to do? What's the play? Chat. Column A, B, C, D, E, F, G. Okay? What are we playing? What's the play? Go for it. D. All right, we got a D, and that's A, B, C, D. Right here, right in the middle. Okay. Okay. So, let's go ahead and E. We got an E, okay? So we got an E. Oopsie. Oh, I'm sorry. I didn't set it to be AI. That needs to be AI. Okay, so we are red. Okay, so it was D. Okay, so then the yellow played D as well. And then someone said E. So our next move is E. And, oh, that's great. We lose in 18 moves no matter what we do. Alura Vumich, that E call was not good, okay? All right, we got to start again. Okay, chat, this time I want you to be serious, okay? This is like humanity versus the machines right now, okay? This is for all the marbles. What are we going to do? What's the column? We got B. Oh, great. Wait, who suggested that? Ishwar. Now we're going to lose in 20 moves no matter what we do because we went with B. All right, hold on. We'll give it one more shot. Chat. Okay, what's the word, chat? Who's the Connect 4 master? We did it one day. Okay, we got a D. We're going to go D first. So D at the beginning. And then we got a C. Oh, great. All right. Well, we are truly doomed as a species, aren't we? Okay, so true story. We actually did have a student who was a Connect 4 master and managed to help us beat the AI one time. I think it was last semester. But that is clearly not the case this semester. Sorry, team. Just wasn't meant to be. Okay, so how fun was that? That was not fun at all, was it? Right? We were playing against an AI opponent that was using classical approaches to basically explore the possible state tree and know, okay, if the opponent does this, I can do this chain of moves to guarantee their loss, okay? So this leads us to an interesting conclusion that might have occurred to you, but maybe didn't. Good game AI is often less competent than AI. In other words, one of the tricky things about making game AI is often not making great AI, as in like super competent, but in programming in just the right deficiencies and incompetencies, right? Otherwise, your AI in many cases should be able to absolutely bulldoze all players, and that is not a fun experience. Okay? So as scary as it is, AI can often beat us if it really wants to. A good example of this is Deep Blue, which you may have heard of. There's a really great video down the rabbit hole on Deep Blue that you should go YouTube when you're done with this. But Deep Blue is the famous IBM computer that in the 90s challenged Garry Kasparov, the grandmaster of chess, the champion, the world champion. It used a brute force classical search approach. I do think it had some heuristics, so it wasn't purely brute force, in my opinion, but it was able to play essentially 40 moves into the future. It also had no human emotion, so it was not able to get tilted or make irrational emotional decisions, okay? And as a result, it ended up beating and becoming world champion across about 7 games. So it's very impressive stuff. So here is a game that is vulnerable to classical approaches. But what about this game? Has anyone heard of this game before? This is the famous Chinese game Go, okay? And the number of possibilities in the board for Go is this big, okay? There are less atoms in the observable universe than there are different possible spaces and configurations of the Go game board, okay? And that's pretty bad news, right? Because there's no way any algorithm could possibly brute force search through this amount of state space, okay? So, however, classical approaches aren't going to work with this game. However, that hasn't stopped companies like Google's Alphago from being able to win and start beating some of the world's best players. And you keep seeing stories like this, right? And so the question is, what technique could they possibly be using? Is it classical or is it something new? And then this is a pretty depressing quote right here. Go champion retires after realizing AI is an entity that cannot be defeated. That's pretty dramatic, isn't it? Oof. So machine learning is the answer, okay? Let me show you a little clip from, I believe this is a program called DeepMind. A team tried to developed a machine learning algorithm that was able to, over time, learn how to play Atari games. So let's take a look.
Around 100 games. So you can see it's not very good, But you can see it's sort of understanding slowly. You can see it's kind of understanding what it's supposed to be doing. It's trying to move towards the ball. This is after an hour of training, so about 200 games. So now you can see it's quantitatively better. It's getting the ball back around 30-40% of the time. It's still not perfect, but it's getting measurably better. Now after 2 hours or 300 games, it's better than any human can play this game. So it never misses the ball, even when the ball comes back at very fast vertical angles. So then we thought, okay, that's pretty good, but let's just leave it training for another 2 hours, see what happens. And then this amazing thing happened. It sort of worked out. The optimal strategy, dig a tunnel to the back, and then send the ball round the back.
Okay, so yeah, if you had weird audio things going on with that video, I'm glad I'm not alone there. It seems to be the video and not your ear. So the idea here is that you have an algorithm that is kind of self-adjusting, okay? It has an internal state to it that optimizes for some sort of event or reward, okay? So in this case, the reward for this algorithm would be points. Whenever this algorithm notices that points have been scored, it says, the thing that I just did is a good thing to be doing because I just did something and then I got points, right? The internal state is something like this. You know, where should I be in relation to the ball? Where should the ball be, right? What should the ball be doing, and how can I make it do that? Other PhD level magic. So what happens is you end up with an algorithm that can adapt to diverse situations over time. You notice that the algorithm doesn't start off doing a really great job, but eventually it gets to the point, it trains over sometimes like many, many hours or even days, to get to a point where its internal state is perfect for informing it on how to play this game, okay? It is much less fragile than classical AI, because if the game were to change, then over time, the algorithm could relearn and learn new approaches, okay? It would be harder to design a level that would doom this algorithm, okay? This isn't just about Pong, though. You're starting to see more of this take hold in other games. Here's a recording of Mar.io that I did a while ago. This is a machine learning genetic algorithm. I think we've talked about that a few times. A neural net genetic algorithm that informs Mario on how to, rest in peace, on what you should do when the sampled state space around you is a certain way. So you can see it's constantly jumping now. Not a bad strategy. Oh, that's amazing. Wow, that was amazing. It has trouble with this pit, but that was really impressive, wasn't it? Another example that a 494 student did, and 499 student, for his 499 project, he, Matoska Waltz, built a Celeste bot. And I think it's going to be a little bit hard to see here, but you can see they're sampling the game world as well, and they're feeding that into a neural net, and that neural net is connecting to these inputs for the character on the right. And so it's easy to imagine, it eventually gets pretty good. It's easy to imagine, like, what if we had technology that could play through any game? Imagine how impactful that could be. Could we have machines test our games for us, find all the bugs? That could be really impactful. That could allow indie teams to take their budget and stretch it way further, right? What about enemy agents? Osama Ansari created a game in which these hummingbird woodpeckers try and consume you, and you are trying to run away, right? This is actually a game on itch.io. I think it's called Attack of the Hummingbots. Anyway, cool. It's pretty awesome. Okay, AlphaGo. It was acquired by Google in 2014. It uses an advanced tree search and 2 layers of neural networks. So it's kind of using classical search and machine learning in combination. It was first able to defeat professional human Go players in 2015, and yeah, it was very impressive. So I'm going to skip this video because we do need to move a bit faster. But essentially, Dota, OpenAI is creating these game-playing bots. They play Dota in particular, and they don't actually have any hard-coded strategy. What happens is they get this bot to play itself. So you have this kind of adversarial machine learning algorithm that is learning by playing against different iterations of itself, okay? What caused me to be more successful? And it was actually able to beat Dota 2 players at a recent tournament in 2017. That's not very recent, is it? Okay, we're going to watch this, but on double speed, okay?
OpenAI's goal is to build safe, artificial general intelligence. We know that AI can be extremely beneficial to humanity, and it's going to require fundamental advances to see what it's really capable of. Dota is a great testbed for artificial intelligence. It's a very complicated game with a large competitive scene. And what this means is that you have to develop new techniques. You have to push forward the boundary of what's possible in order to get anywhere. For this project, we're building a Dota player. We're starting with a bot capable of beating top professional players at Dota 1v1. The rules of Dota are so complicated that if you just think really hard about how the game works and try to write those rules down, you're not even going to be able to reach the performance of a reasonable player. So our bot is trained entirely through self-play. It starts out completely random with no knowledge of the world, and simply plays against a copy of itself, which means it always has an evenly matched opponent. And it climbs this ladder of skill level until it's able to reach the performance of the best professional players in the world. The International is Dota's World Championships. 20,000 fans come from around the world to watch professionals compete for a $24 million prize pool. Over the course of the International, we tested our bot against a number of professional players. It turns out that our AI has learned really robust skills in the game that is actually really competitive with these pros. Many of the pros wanted to keep playing the bot and started talking about using it as part of their training routine.
My first impressions is it's pretty easy to get tilted from losing to like a bot. And I think the problem relies in people don't usually expect such a strong bot. Now he has a double wave and I can't trade hits with him. And he's going to be level 3 before me with full HP. I think when I watched the replay, honestly, I just learned something. So it's pretty helpful. Like I felt like I'm one of the strongest SFs, and knowing that this move, like if I can foresee that if I make this move, this will happen to my wave and this is what's going to happen, it's just pretty nice to experience it. Like someone could tell me this could happen, but I think experiencing it is just another level of knowledge.
In addition to the pros, we thought it was pretty cool that a number of amateur players enjoyed playing the bot as well.
It does kind of, I think that it would open up out of the box thinking, because there's many ways to win a game of Dota specifically. Okay, he's ignoring the fairy fires. The bot is good. The bot is better than I could have ever imagined. That we can get one hit from the donkey. Hello. He took the bait. Okay. So, your bot does not attack random things on the ground.
Does not attack random things on the ground.
It predicts where you go in the darkness. Yeah, that, I did. Can I play again?
You're very welcome.
Okay, we're gonna go one more.
This event was us introducing our Dota project to the world. The next step is to try to build a team of 5 AIs and see if we can get it to reach the level of the top human professionals. Beyond that, we want to start mixing together AIs and human players on a single team and try to reach levels of performance that neither of them can reach on their own. We're super excited to see where that goes and hope that you'll stay tuned.
All right, so that's pretty cool, isn't it? It is truly impressive what people are accomplishing these days. And as obvious as it might be to, hey, let's take our AI in games and let's make really better bots, there are actually a lot of different uses for this kind of technology and this advancement of science and tech. So we're going to talk about those things when we come back, okay? Because we do have a 5-minute break we got to give you. So let's take that 5-minute break. I'm going to turn on some music. And we'll see you back here at 1:47, okay? And we will finish up this course. Okay, let's get some music going on. 1:47, we'll see you back here, okay? What kind of music we got going on? Let's get some Mega Man 8, Tengu Man. Let me know if you have any questions, okay? The Halo example is hilarious. I know on Legendary the snipers really frustrate a lot of people because you know that if the developers really want to, they can have you die on the frame that there is a raycast going from the Jackal to you. But they can't do that because that would be one of the least fun things you can imagine. You would have to be able to get through the entire stage without once entering into the line of sight of the enemy snipers. So one of the really tough things about machine learning when it comes to AI, and we discovered this through the 499 game that did the humming bot that would chase you, is that when you use machine learning and when you train opponents to be the AI enemies, you actually lose a lot of control over how those opponents react. right? If you have programmed, an AI system based on tree branches, and then you can, like for instance, the alien isolation AI. Then what you can do is if you notice the AI doing a certain thing in a certain situation and you don't want that, you can just go into your behavior tree and you can just cut that branch, right? You have a lot of control. With a machine learning agent, it's kind of a black box, right? You have your agent trained for a day straight, but then you have a model that has been trained, but that model might not really tell you anything. You might not know how to go into that model, change its numbers, and get different behavior. So if you want to tweak it, if you think the AI isn't doing what you want, or if it's maybe too good, then what you have to do is you have to go back in and retrain your model, and you just kind of cross your fingers that it's going to be more fun this time, right? It's pretty nasty, as far as getting a very customized experience, right? So a lot of game developers, what you'll notice is that technology companies are using machine learning a lot, but game development studios really aren't, and it's pretty much, I think, for this reason. They do use it in their tooling sometimes to like generate new textures based on provided textures, but yeah, I don't know. Ishwar says, I'm in 2 game theory / games AI lectures at once. I'm in EECS 592 lecture at the same time as this, and we're doing game theory there. Cool. Okay, in 1 minute, we're gonna rush through the end of this lecture, and then we're gonna get on to your final lecture, okay? If you want a slower and more in-depth version of this lecture, you can watch the YouTube recordings from last semester. Or just, go through the slides. The problem with our slides, though, is that they rarely have a ton of text, and as a result, it can be kind of hard to follow the slides unless someone is giving them to you. If you think about it, this is kind of like a DRM feature. If someone decides to rip off my slides, and I don't really care if they do very much, but if someone just tries to rip off these slides, they're going to be like, what on earth was I supposed to say here? It's very, very funny. Okay, let's get back to it. Okay, so this is really, really cool, right? We've got agents that are building cool bots. We've got machine learning being used to build these really impressive bots. They train for months at a time, and then they can play these games really well. And that's really, really cool, without any hard coding of the game's logic or rules. Well, that's kind of impactful. You could use it for playtesting and stuff like that, but there are other uses for this kind of technology, right? Self-driving cars, how about? You've heard a lot about those. If they can get the self-driving technology to a level that's safe enough, then potentially it could have huge ramifications on the auto and transit industry. Games are a set of interesting decisions, right? If, then, do. But now, right, we can evaluate like the most complicated games in the world. We don't have to have programmers hard code all of these rules. This could be extremely, extremely impactful. If you think about it, games are kind of they are virtual worlds. They are simplifications of the real world. And if we want to have AI that can actually handle the real world and navigate through it effectively, then it really helps to have all of these mini worlds to train our AI on. You can think of each video game as a test bed for the real world, because many video games sort of work similar to the real world. They have physics, things fall when you drop them, a door takes you to a new place, right? So anyway, machine learning is amazing, but what's the catch? Well, if you go to grad school, there's a very good chance you're going to be studying, okay, we have machine learning and it's impactful, but how can we increase the quality of the results, but also how can we make it train faster? Because if you notice from that video back there of DeepMind, it took 600 training episodes to get it to a kind of a mediocre level of play. 1 month of playing itself from the Dota 2 video. how can we make the results that we do end up with more adaptable? So unfortunately, self-driving has had a bit of a bumpy road. Haha, that's clever. And Uber had one of their self-driving bots in Arizona accidentally kill a lady who was crossing the street at night. And so that was an instance where the machine learning model that was trained was not flexible enough. And it did not handle a different situation properly. What new industries can we apply this new approach to? One of the coolest ones is someone managed to take an old game, Resident Evil 3, and remaster its graphics using machine learning to kind of improve the clarity of the visuals, which at that point were getting kind of fuzzy. So machine learning is easily the single largest category of incoming PhD students at the University of Michigan, and this is not a rare thing. There are a lot of institutions where this is the case. And I think second place only has like 1/3 the students, and I think that was computer vision or something. I'm not sure. Anyway, there are tools yet in AI that work really well today. One of those is, hey, pathfinding, right? It's a really cool approach. There's a cool tool here that allows you to test different pathfinding algorithms in different kind of test beds. The idea that you're going to represent all of your decisions or all of your options or the world in this tree, and you're just going to search through that tree in different ways, is still a powerful one if you need to accomplish some pathfinding. Here is Planet Coaster. There are unique techniques that can help large amounts of agents and crowds find their way through advanced environments. You can actually, using a technique called flow and vector fields, which you can go ahead and read about if you want to. There are behavior trees where you literally copy and paste it. It's not copy and paste, but you set up a bunch of if-else statements. That might be the way that you're doing some of your AI right now, and it works fine. This is the kind of technique that was able to give us pretty awesome AI in games like Street Fighter a long time ago. This is an AI, by the way, that does in fact cheat. Someone looked. Oh, are we dead? Are we still going? Another crash. Rip. Okay. Hey, are we back? Are we back? Hello. Are we back? Are we back? Okay, I think we're back. Yeah. Okay, so the Street Fighter. I think the Street Fighter GIF killed us back there. That game, it does in fact cheat, like many fighting games do. It reads your inputs and probabilistically decides whether it wants to block, in one frame, right? And so behavior trees, right? Simple collections of if and else statements layered on top of each other can still be pretty effective. Procedural generation is a big topic, and it is a trap for 494 students. Some teams manage to make it work pretty well, but other teams lose a lot of time to procedural generation. Sometimes it can work really, really well in the case of Spelunky, and sometimes it can kind of fall on its face in the case of No Man's Sky. You can look up these two games. One of the most distinct differences between how Spelunky handled procedural generation and how No Man's Sky did. Spelunky, despite the fact that it randomly creates its environments, all of its randomness starts from a seed of handcrafted level designs. Okay? In other words, this game, its building blocks are handcrafted rooms, right? Configurations of tiles that have probabilistic elements put on top of them so that the game can kind of decide to morph these handcrafted designs, but never too much, okay? So the game, as a result, has a very handcrafted feel. That is very interesting and unique and engaging, but it's still randomless. It's new. It's newish every time. No Man's Sky, I think, had a little bit of this, but not nearly as much handcraftedness. And as a result, you end up with a lot of planets that are just kind of mushed together after a while. And the results speak for themselves. I think things have improved a great deal since. So anyway, okay. Why is procedural generation dangerous? It can get players into a lot of problems. I'll run through really quickly how procedural generation in Spelunky works. If you haven't played this game, Spelunky is a game where you start at the top of a cave, and then you have to kind of work your way down to the bottom floor of the cave, and then find a door. That takes you to the next cave area, where you start on the top and then work your way down. Okay? Now, here is how the algorithm works for generating a stage, an area in Spelunky. You choose one location, one starting room in this area, out of 4 on this top row. That is where you place your entry door, and that's where you spawn your character. Okay? You then move, right or left or down. Okay? It's a coin flip. Do you want right or left or down randomly? Okay? And if you go down, you can't go back up. You can only go right, left, or down. The algorithm then moves around a little bit, and if it ever wants to go down when it's already on the bottom floor, instead it creates an exit. What you notice is that this has created a critical path, okay? The player starts in this room, the game knows this, it goes to it then goes through this path to get to this escape. Now, this is really important because the player might not have any bombs to blow through walls, and the player might not have any ropes to safely climb up or down long distances. The game absolutely cannot put the player into an unwinnable situation or a soft lock, right? You know that from game design. You are not allowed to soft lock your player. And so what will happen is this critical path, all the rooms on it will guaranteed be safe. As in, it won't have a super long jump and it won't be blocked off by a wall of blocks, okay? Someone with no health left and no resources left still must be able to get from here to here. And so the level design will change to make sure that is possible, okay? Every other room are optional places. It's not on the critical path, so we can put goodies there. We can put dangerous things there. We can block those rooms off entirely if we want to. And as a result, we can allow and encourage exploration without punishing the player for it, okay? So anyway, the reason we always start on the top and always end on the bottom is because gravity is an omnipresent force that could prevent the player from climbing up through rooms. And so the player can always go down because gravity makes that easy, but they can't always go up. So that's why we always have to start at the top and always go to the bottom, okay? There are a couple in the HD Spelunky game. It's like one stage that has you doing the opposite, and it is designed in a very unique way to make that possible, okay? Blah, 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 blah. Okay, procedural generation, the takeaway here is that it's an extremely powerful tool, but it's really only a seasoning. It can't be your entire meal. It allows you to take content that you've already designed and spices it up and makes it delicious and makes more of it. But relying on it as the only thing is going to create a really unsatisfying meal, okay? So anyway, use it with care and do not rely on it exclusively or you might end up with an early No Man's Sky situation, okay? All right. There's another game there called Cloudberry Kingdom that relied pretty much entirely on procedurally generated platforming levels, and it wasn't really well received as a result. Levels felt random because they were. There wasn't really a handcrafted feel to them. Okay, so that was a really, really quick kind of tour through the world of games and AI. I recommend that you go watch the longer breakdown of that via the recordings from last year, or you can look through these slides a little bit closer, okay? We've got about 20 minutes, so let's go ahead and finish off this class. I want to recap the stuff that you've kind of learned, and I want to talk about the nature of what you've learned in this course and what you should take away moving forward. Let's go ahead and get this presentation loaded up. Ishwar, well done. Took that bot out in no time flat. Okay, let's go ahead and recap. Does anyone know who this is? You probably don't know who this is, but you've definitely heard his phrase before. This is George Santayana, and he was essentially from the late 1800s. He had this famous phrase, "Those who cannot remember the past are condemned to repeat it." Okay? Now, this is a phrase that you usually hear in the context of stuff like wars, right? If humanity cannot remember the horrors of war, then we are doomed to repeat it, right? And have more conflict and more destruction. However, this phrase, right? This phrase can also make sense in other contexts, not just societies, rulers, and wars, but what about our own past, right? What about the good stuff? Maybe we want to keep things going, right? If they were good, maybe we want to avoid things if they were bad. If we take a course, if we start learning and we develop habits and those habits make us really productive, then how can we keep those going? On the other hand, if we have developed bad habits, if we're crunching all the time, if we're not eating right, if we're not exercising, then we need to let those things go. We need to look into our past to figure out what our future should be and what we should do, okay? Here's the takeaway. You've invested heavily in this course, so it really, really behooves us to do a postmortem for the entire thing. Remember the postmortems that you've done, right? They're probably pretty satisfying to you. Did anyone like the postmortems assignments, right? They're a chance for you to go back and look, honestly, okay, what on earth happened? Why did it happen that way? And how can we make sure it doesn't happen again? Or if it went really well, how can we reinforce to make sure good things always happen, right? So, okay, this is a part of the iterative process, right? We're back here at the very first day of class. The iterative process, it helped Scott Cawthon and Five Nights at Freddy's in our first lecture. And now it is time to apply it, but not to games, but to you and your life, okay? So I'll give you a little example of how I try and apply this. Every single night, I have a bot that creates a Google document and will email it to me and say, hey, it's time for your nightly review, right? It's just a document, and I'm just supposed to write into it whatever I felt that day, whatever happened that day, what's on my mind that day, what's on my mind for the future. And what happens is, I tend to notice that things go really well for me during periods where I'm writing a lot and thinking a lot, right? Periods like this. And things tend to fall apart. I tend to become a little bit less productive during periods where I'm not writing that much. You can see these gaps, and these were not amazing times for me, okay? So here's some questions to start with as you think back on this course, whether it was worth it and to what extent and in what ways it was worth it. You need to ask yourself, what did I gain? What did I cost, right? And I can't help but imagine the Thanos gif, right? You accomplished your goals. What did it cost? Everything. Hopefully, EECS-494 did not cost you everything. But if it did, you need to take count of that, okay? And then what comes next? What do I do next? What is the play? When it comes to the first question, you should ask yourself, did I gain money here? Did I gain knowledge? Did I gain influence over what? Have I gained authority? Or can I speak honestly and thoughtfully on any topic? Have I gained relationships that could help in the future? Am I personally satisfied? Have I always wanted to make a game and see people be happy with something I created? Did you inherently enjoy it, right? Was the act of making games kind of a relaxing one for you? And was any of it valuable and how? Okay? What did you spend to accomplish this, right? EECS-494 usually is reported to be a pretty knowledgeable course. You get a lot of knowledge and expertise out of it, but it's also reported to be a pretty expensive course to take. And I'm not just talking about money, though I could be, right? Stability. Were you able to keep your sleep schedule up? What about your health? What about your relationships? Was the time that it took to get all this knowledge, was it worth it in the end? And depending on your answer to these two questions, you should have some idea of what comes next. Should I keep doing this kind of thing? Should I keep taking super difficult courses? Was it worth it in terms of knowledge? Can I turn around and take this knowledge and put it into a job or a future? It cost a lot to take EECS-494, but ask yourself, could you have made different decisions, different tweaks to how you did it in order to come out a little bit better, right? Maybe there were ways that we could have kept our sleep schedule in decent shape, but we made some mistakes, and next time we're going to be able to do that, right? Who could you go work for now? What groups could you go make friends with because you now have this expertise and some cool projects to show off? How could you improve unrelated work? Can you take and use this game dev knowledge to go get a job at an education company? Could you take this knowledge and go do VR designer apps for Ford? The answer is yes, by the way. So there are so many questions, but answering these and asking yourselves, just the act of doing so will help you iterate. It'll help you iterate your life, okay? But only you can really answer these because many of them are very, very personal and they really depend on who is asking the question, okay? So I'm going to give you some examples of things you might have gained, okay? Knowledge, right? Oh, we did a lot of stuff. We covered a lot of stuff. In COVID semesters, in non-COVID semesters, we would do a little bit more, right? We would have done a field trip to the CVGA. We would have iterated on card games too. Instead of the Five Nights at Freddy's lecture, we usually start with a card game lecture. but that doesn't work so well when we're all separated. There were other things that we did. You learned about how game engines often handle collisions and the idea that there's a difference between those and triggers. Composition, right? And how it allows you to build a kind of a toolbox of components that you can attach to stuff. It's a pretty powerful pattern, and you find it everywhere in game dev. Jira. If you haven't worked with project management tools or project management at all, you probably got a little bit of a taste for that this semester. What about coroutines? The idea that sometimes we really want to pause code execution over time and let other code run. Raycasting, reaching out to see what's there in 3D space, how game engines work at a basic level, interesting decisions, why, what are the elements of making a game that is going to make it engaging versus a game that runs but just kind of annoys people, right? So interesting decisions, juice, guidance, C# delegates, Metroid. You re-implemented Metroid and Zelda. That's pretty crazy. You wrote around 11 pages on researching different games and their designs and how they contrast. You know about guiding the player. You gave around 7 playtesting sessions, giving and receiving a ton of feedback, right? This is all super useful stuff. Juiciness and rendering. You learned a little bit about graphics, maybe a little bit about animation, how to keep mechanics kind of deep, but also make them accessible. UI and UX, what makes it work? Where do we put information to make sure the player sees it? You missed out on a field trip to do VR and AR at Dudastat Center, but you did get a business analysis lecture. You hopefully remember ecosystem maps, the idea that the reason Apple is so valuable and impactful as a company is because all their products work together and kind of support each other. Value chains. So what happened to Blockbuster? What is happening to GameStop? Playtesting, games as art, Pat 305, client-freelancer relationship, movement, feedback loops, trailer productions, right? Exhibition techniques, and a little bit on graphics programming and SIMD, and a little bit on professionalism, right? If you take all this stuff, there's a lot of different fields that you got a little bit of a taste of. And you might, if you enjoy one of these fields in particular, you might want to dive a lot deeper. That could be really, really useful, actually. But anyway, gosh, that's a lot of knowledge. And you got experience with not just the future of games. I'll argue, you could go and get a AAA job right now. It might be a little bit tough until you get some more experience, until you've worked at a AA or a startup for a little while. But we've had students go and do that. So you don't only have the ability to contribute to the future of the games industry. You should have the ability to contribute to the future, okay? This knowledge goes beyond games. You can do impactful, very human, socially good stuff with this. You can do research. You can create awesome visualization apps that help researchers visualize their data. You can build educational games, right? You can take awesome games out there and you can make them more educational to help teach people. You can build awesome visualizations for companies, right? I think this is like Nike hired out a visualization so that you could go to their store and before you even put on a shoe, you could kind of browse through all of them and see which ones you like the styling of. You can build apps like Spellbound is doing for pediatric medical care, things to distract children when they're in a very, very scary situation. Being at the hospital, awaiting surgery where they're going to open you up. Like, that is terrifying, okay? It might not be something you think about a ton, but this is really, really helpful stuff. Anything to make the stay a little bit safer and more calm. You can help people plan their weddings with a beautiful interactive 3D app like BrideView. You can use genetic algorithms and machine learning to get these cool, crazy games where you kind of design a car and then see how far it can get, right? So you can use game development for research. We've already seen this, right? NVIDIA down here actually hired a team to build a virtual laboratory, a virtual world where they could train self-driving cars in order to reduce the cost of training, right? In the real world, if you want a self-driving car running around, you have to pay a lot in licensing fees because it's pretty dangerous, right? In a virtual world, no one cares. There aren't really any regulations, and so it is much more efficient to do your training there if you can. You can use game development for visualization. You already saw BrideView, right? You may remember my visualization, my social media visualizer. Sorry, my dataset visualizer. We have other Other companies that are, well, this company's dead, sadly, but they used virtual reality to help people visualize molecules. So scientists and students could get a much better idea of how molecules are structured by looking at them in a 3D space rather than as a 2D image on a textbook. Okay. What about game dev for humanity? You've already seen Spellbound, right? You already remember them. What about Mainichi, right? Helping people kind of step into someone else's shoes and gain empathy for people who aren't like them, right? Who have differences. Education, we already covered that, right? The massive impact that Minecraft has been making in some schools. What about game development for professional life? Okay, riddle me this, chat. We're moving pretty fast, but I want your thoughts. Okay, after this course, you'd better not ever create a slide that looks like this, okay? Like, how many of you are going to go do that? How many of you are going to go do that? I hope no one, right? You do not want to make a slide that looks like this because the same exact rules that govern our game UI and our game guidance and our game trailers also govern presentations, okay? You are going to disengage people in a business meeting if you do this, just the exact same way that you're going to disengage people from a video game if you do this, okay? Big block of text. Yeah, I don't remember anything from TechCom 497, but hopefully they're teaching you not to do this, okay? All right. What about design of structures and spaces and experiences? The next time Halloween comes around and you go to a haunted corn maze, the next time you go to a haunted house when Halloween comes around, look at how that space is designed and your route through it is designed to kind of escalate. It starts off pretty calm, it creeps you out a little bit, and then, you know, the stuff hits the fan toward the end, right? To get you worked up, to get you those highs and lows. The exact same techniques for guiding people around a game world are used to guide people around a theme park or through a haunted house, okay? So anyway, yeah, hey, look, a slide I'm not going to read. Yep, Fairly Odd Parents joke. Here's a really fun example I don't think I showed you. This is Steve Jobs from Macworld 2000. Do you remember this? Did I show this? I might have in the first day. But remember when he shows the juicy bar at the bottom? Everyone goes crazy. Oh, have you seen this? I think we're going to skip it because I think people have seen it. We'll show it at the showcase again if you have. But basically, the entire crowd goes wild when Steve shows the juiciness of the bar at the bottom, how it magnifies. The icons get bigger when you move your cursor to the bottom of the dock. Okay? What about game development for simulation, right? A lot of simulations look like this, even today. But a lot of future simulations will look more and more like this. This being, I believe, a jet fighter simulation to train pilots. Yeah, there is a lot of money that flows into programs like this to train military, to train pilots, right? To train just passenger pilots from countries all around the world. And so you can find a very lucrative career building this kind of stuff if you want to do that kind of thing. The main takeaway here, right? Iteration is the key to it all, okay? You start somewhere, and it doesn't necessarily matter so much where you start. As long as you have the confidence that tomorrow will be better, then you can keep moving forward. And maybe you take some wrong turns, but as long as you keep evaluating, you keep playtesting, whatever that means in your context, and keep looking back, then you will know you eventually get on the right track. Things keep improving, okay? So here are the true course takeaways in my opinion. Multidisciplinary empathy. The idea that you are engineers, or at least you are great programmers, but to become a great engineer, you need to understand the context that your systems survive in. And that means understanding the artists you're going to work with, understanding the business people you're going to work with and their problems, understanding how your team manages to get its resources, understanding how to make people care about the stuff that you create, right? That will turn you into a true engineer versus just a great programmer, okay? And the power of iteration. The idea that we just said, you can start basically anywhere, and as long as you keep moving and you keep looking back and honestly evaluate, where are we this week? Where are we next week, right? As painful as it can be sometimes, as long as you keep doing that, things will get better. That's a guarantee. And then confidence with feedback. So I guess there are 3 things instead of 2. The idea that when someone gives you feedback, they're really giving you a gift most of the time. It's a healthy thing to assume, okay? And that you need to get to the point where you never take it personally. And it's extremely hard to do this, right? People would call this gaining steel skin or thick skin. The idea that, hey, they're not judging me, okay? There are any billion of reasons why this game might not be where we want it to be, but they're just trying to help guarantee that I know what I need to do and where I'm currently at, okay? It's not a personal attack. If you can get this thing, iteration becomes easier, and you're going to be fine, okay? So keep those things in mind. I have 2 final notes for you, okay? One is all about Goodhart's law. Has anyone heard of it? Goodhart's law, stated formally, is that any observed statistical regularity will tend to collapse once pressure is placed upon it for control purposes. That's complicated. Here's one that's less so. When a measure becomes a target, it ceases to be a good measure. That is Goodhart's law, okay? And here's why we care about this. Who knows what this is? This is a rubric. This is something that you've cared about a lot throughout this entire course, okay? This determines whether you pass. So I'm guessing some of you have gone and designed your games and your tasks for the week based on, okay, what can help us get these points? But here's the thing, right? How would a game like Flappy Bird score on a rubric like this? This rubric has an interesting decisions criterion. It has a novelty criterion, right? It has a professionalism criterion. Flappy Bird wouldn't do very well, would it? Flappy Bird, one of the most popular and enjoyed games on the planet, would probably struggle a lot, particularly on the interesting decisions point. Does that mean the rubric's messed up? What about a game like Gone Home? A game that mainly has you kind of walking around and exploring. There isn't a humongous challenge. I think there's some puzzle elements to it. But this game probably wouldn't do all that well in 494 grading either. This is to say that, right, we evaluate for these metrics, but only because we have to. We have to find some way of taking an infinite creative space and kind of smushing it and compressing it down to the point where we can actually evaluate it in a semi-predictable, semi-objective way. In other words, you should not let this rubric, you should not let EECS 494 grading constrain your creativity any longer, okay? You're about to leave this course and leave this rubric behind. If you want to make a game that has 0 guidance at all, go for it. Who knows? Maybe the harsher, welcome your game provides will really strike a chord, right? All these games that are so well guided and never let the player get confused, maybe players will decide they like that someday. Maybe, right? Maybe games that don't have any interesting decisions in them, right? You just kind of go with the flow. Maybe that's going to be really popular. Maybe there's a genre out there that would get demolished by EECS 494 grading, but becomes the next big thing, okay? We grade you like this because we have to, but don't let us constrain your creativity anymore. You're free. There's a famous Japanese poet, Matsuo Basho. I think if you go to Osaka, you'll find his statues as you climb some of the mountains there. And they have interesting sayings on them, okay? You'll find them all around. And here he is, of course, a realistic, real-life photo. Matsuo Basho. He has a really, really amazing saying. It goes, "Do not follow in the footsteps of the wise. Seek what they sought." In other words, do not assume that your instructors today that are giving you knowledge and trying to help you understand a path to victory, do not assume that they know everything, okay? Do not assume that what we've taught you in this course is the only path to victory, the only path to an impactful, fantastic future. Do something weird. Experiment, okay? Do not let the current way of making games cause you to miss out on a bold, new, amazing way of doing so, okay? Seek to make an impact, a great impact on other people's lives, but don't necessarily follow in the footsteps of those you currently listen to, okay? Perhaps in the future you'll be teaching your own approach to game development, and we will be listening to you, okay? And that would be an amazing future. I look forward to it. And keep iterating. Thank you so much, everyone, for joining us. It's been a really good semester. and we will see you on Wednesday, okay? So, all right. So we're going to turn the music on. We've got about 5 minutes. I'm going to come back at probably about 2:30, and we will do this again. Otherwise, thank you so much for your efforts this semester. It's been fantastic. You've worked so hard in the hardest circumstances, and the results, I think, speak for themselves. They definitely will on Wednesday. So I hope you will be excited for that. Make sure to let your family and friends know. Again, let your friends know that you're going to be showing off your game on Wednesday. They're going to love it. We love it. And thank you so much. We're super proud of you. And we will see you then, okay? Let us know if you have any questions. I'll hang around for a few minutes, and then I'll step away for a moment, okay? We'll turn some music on. You're welcome, team. You're welcome. Thank you so much for your efforts. Something I probably should have said. So Ishwar, every semester at the showcase, Ishwar does a speedrunning marathon where he plays through every single game at the showcase in the Discord server. So please be sure to stop by and watch that and see how quickly he can beat your game, okay? Last year, I think it took him about 4 hours. Is that right, Ishwar? How long did it take to beat the entire batch of games, do you know? Unfortunately, I can't watch until the very end of the showcase, but then I'll jump in to watch. Wow, 4 hours, 26 minutes, and 20 seconds to beat every single game at the showcase. That's pretty awesome. I feel like you should have an opponent. You should have a racer, but I can't, unfortunately, I can't join you. I have to run the showcase. If we beat Ishwar, we get more free games. I think you get bragging rights. That's what I think. Yeah, Ishwar will stop the Ishwar will start speedrunning after the trailers are done being watched. So yeah, that's not. I remember we were starting to lose our minds a little bit toward the end of the speedrun marathon last year. Yeah, the marathon starts after the trailers are finished during the showcase, so probably around 7:45. Yeah, this happens in the Discord voice chat. Ishwar will stream his screen. If you're looking for things to do in the next couple days, work on your itch.io page. See if you can get some really cool art at the top. Work on your GIFs a little bit, make them more exciting. That will help more people play your game when it launches. Okay. Otherwise, you should probably work on your other courses. Make sure you don't forget about those. If you want to keep developing, remember Wolverine Soft Studio if you want credit for contributing to a big team project. X50, no, yeah, that's X55. EECS499. So there's a forum a couple lectures back. That is the research course. And hopefully we'll have some new courses relating to games within a couple semesters or so. I regret that you can't take them now. Okay, I'm gonna step away, everyone. I'll be back at around 2:30 to probably 2:35, okay? Thank you all again so much, and we will see you again at the showcase. Bye-bye.